So it's a cold morning. It was just over 5 when we got up. Um, what time did we get up? Oh, about an hour and a half ago. Um, and it's still it's still misty out there. There's quite a lot of it is still quite misty out there. Went down and let the chickens out, and I got down there, and it always worries me when I get down there and it's quiet, and I as I go in the first gate, I normally call out. Obviously, they speak English. I normally call out, and somebody normally flies up onto the window ledge or something. Some response, and I heard nothing, and I've I've experienced in the past the silence of the chicken shed, and finding the whole flock devastated. So it always worries me a bit when I hear no noise, no response to my calling. But they're fine. They're all fine. Mrs. Broody running out to where she's going to try and sit for the rest of the day. I really need to do some sorting out. There's broken eggs in places, and it makes the straw really nasty. So I need to do some clearing up of that, and put some fresh straw down. What I don't like about this time, I like this time of year because it's more comfortable in terms of doing things and being able to get on with stuff and not dragging around in the heat. But I hate getting dressed and undressed in this weather because of putting more layers on. It just takes longer to get dressed, and I can think back to each time we reach that point where you've only got to put one layer on, and how lovely it is just to chuck something on and move and carry on and not have to put on several layers. So I've got several layers on. I've got winter woolly socks on because I'm not going anywhere today, so I don't need to have socks on that I can get into my boots. That's why I don't like this having to put so many layers on, but I am comfortably warm. I've got the gas fire light. What's the temperature in here is 20, but I have got curtains drawn and the double doors behind me are pushed too. So it's comfortable in here. I've just been reading about the Finland has just closed, a couple of days ago, I think it is now, on midnight on Thursday, have closed their border to Russian citizens with European Schengen tourist visas from midnight on Thursday. I'm feeling really sorry for all those Russians that are trying to leave Russia because of the partial in quotation marks mobilization against for the war in Ukraine. I was listening to or watching a live video last night of two very knowledgeable people, knowledgeable about Ukraine and knowledgeable about Russia, and the guy was talking about that there are more men currently leaving Russia than the 300,000 in quotation marks that Putin is trying to call up. They're just leaving in flocks. And they talked about, that it's different in terms of Russia hasn't been invaded, so it's not an existential crisis. It's not like I've got to fight for my country to be, because we need to protect the country. And I think that's why so many are leaving. It's like they don't believe in the war. It's not. They're not fighting against an aggressor. They are the aggressor, and that makes all the difference. So, I'm thinking I heard. Did I hear it on the same video that Georgia are closing their ranks and saying we don't want you? And I'm imagining that this winter there's going to be hundreds of thousands of Russians, displaced Russians, more refugees, floating around in different countries, not welcome anywhere. And it's just awful. And it I think I always think about how it could so easily be us. It's very arrogant to believe that it couldn't happen to you, or it's because they're Russian, or it's because they're Syrian, or it's because this, it's because that. None of us choose where we're born. None of us chose what sky we were born beneath. And it's pure luck for many of us that we're in the situations that we're in, that we had the upbringing we had, that means that at the moment this is where we are and this is how it is and we're safe. But you don't know what tomorrow brings. You really don't. And it's terrifying to imagine that, it could be you trying to flee your country. It could be you needing to escape and to be supported and to be welcomed. And it sounds like there are other countries. Let's say other countries. I think it did in the headline. Estonia, Lithuania, Poland are all. There was somewhere else as well. I can't. Are all looking at their borders. Oh, here it is. I was further down. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania are going to take, or did take, a decision early in September. So Finland's aligning itself with those countries. So that's a worry. The other worry is, well, amongst other things, so many worries, is the pipeline that the gas pipeline that has been sabotaged. We're already going to be struggling for gas and electricity this winter, and now the pipeline is leaking. So I don't know what's going to happen to that. Don't know who's going to, who sabotaged it. How do you mend it? It's just unbelievable, isn't it? It's impossible. And meanwhile, in the UK, it's the 1st of October here too, but in the 1st of October in the UK is apparently the day that everybody needs to, or last night I think was, everybody needed to read their electricity meter. Or is it just electricity? Needed to read their meter to make sure that future bills will be based on their consumption and not on assumption. I think that's right. I'm not quite so sure, but I think that's right. It's, they really need to make sure that what they're paying for is the correct, that the companies that they're paying have made the correct choices, I think, about what people are going to pay. And the current Prime Minister, whose name I'm not going to mention, was on local radio yesterday with loads of pauses, a bit like me just now, asked a question, didn't have the answer, and had to really struggle to find the answer. But she was giving the wrong facts about something about bills will be capped at 2,500, which apparently, according to full fact, is wrong. So she really doesn't know her stuff. Well, we know that. She doesn't know her stuff. And she talked about there being a global economic crisis, a global recession, which to some degree there is. It's not, it's not just the UK, but the UK has a double whammy because of Brexit and because they've cut themselves off from Europe. So yes, there is a downturn in the economy, but in the UK, it's the management of the economy and Brexit and has, and so many other things against it, that I think it's going to be harder, which is why I talk about that, because I think it's going to be harder. I think it's going to be hard here, but I feel like we'll manage, and that we're not being managed by impulsive politicians. I don't feel that Macron or any of our politicians are impulsive in the way these new Tory. I mean, they're just like, I can't explain it, but they just don't see. They don't know what they're doing, but they think they know what they're doing, and that's worrying when people reach that level. It's I'm sure it's the Peter principle, isn't it? Is that reaching beyond their level of competence, and I think that's what you've got at the moment over there. And it's just sitting watching it from over here is terrifying. It's entertaining as well, but it's terrifying because I have family in the UK. My son lives in the UK. My son is just in between having to move out of a forces supplied accommodation to supply his own, because he's retired, has to find his own accommodation, and now either faced with a massive mortgage, more massive than it was going to be, or renting, where landlords will be able to put their rents up, and will be putting their rents up because their mortgages will have gone up. Yeah, it's worrying. Anyway, so that's what's going on at the moment. That's what I got my certificate this morning on email for my 10 trees that I planted this month. And when I started it, when I signed up, I chose a forest in France, quite close, about an hour and a half away, which is quite close really. So I chose a forest in France and assumed that that's where my trees would be planted each month, and have obviously assumed wrong, because this last lot of trees have been planted in Guinea. And I thought, oh, that's a bit disappointing. And then I thought, well, it's the planet, isn't it? Guinea is part of the planet, just as France is. So 10 trees is 10 trees, and I'm really pleased about that. So who knows what country they'll be planted in next month. We'll see. So have a good day, and keep safe, and don't look at the news. That's probably the best bet. Don't look at the news.